Welcome to the We Hack Purple podcast, where each week I get to welcome a really amazing guest where we talk about what their career is like in information security. What is their job like? Does their job pay well? What types of attitudes do you need, or attributes or personality traits or training or education in order to do different types of jobs? And this week we are going to interview Tracie Martin, who is a principal IoT security engineer. This week we are also sponsored by Ubiq Security, and they do API security, and they make a cool product to help with that. Without further ado, I'm going to welcome our guest. I just have to do an intro. Oh, and I'm Tanya Janka. I always forget. I'm the host. Hello. And now to reveal our guest, Tracie. Ta-da!
Hey. How's
Hi.
it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. We got a week of summer given back to us from all the wildfires and everything else, so we're enjoying that.
So where are you, Tracie, approximately?
It depends on who's asking, because I used to get really mad at people who would say they were from Seattle when they're secretly from a suburb, because I lived in Seattle, but now I've sold out and moved to the suburbs. So if you're not from Washington State, I'm from Seattle. If you're from Washington State, I'm sorry, I live in Bothell, okay? I'm in the sticks.
That is fantastic. So, will you please tell us your name and your online handle, Tracie?
Sure. My name's Tracie Martin. My Twitter handle is @datsecuritychick, no K, because I ran out of characters. Which actually, people always ask about that name and kind of where it came from. I was the first woman hired to the information security segment for NATO counterintelligence in the 50-year history of the organization, and nobody ever knew my name. Like, no, I don't think, to this day, I don't think anyone there still knows my name, but there would always be somebody who'd be like, I'm looking for that security chick, that security chick. And so it just, when I got on Twitter, I thought, yep, that's who I'm gonna be. I'm gonna be that security chick. But I didn't have enough characters, so I had to get clever.
Right before we actually got ready to get on, I tweeted and I was like, data security chick. Data security chick. Why can't you find Tracie? And I'm like typing, and I was like, that's it. I'm just going to put her name and just go with it. And I'm sure it'll be fine. And it appears to be fine.
Yes. So yes, there's a dat, no A, chick,
Okay.
no K. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So please tell us your amazing new job title.
Yeah, so I am a principal security engineer for a pretty large technology company. Right now, we run a lot of the cloud infrastructure that backs IoT for users in the cloud. And so my job is really just poking around. It's been actually great fun. Poking around and saying, if I were an attacker, how would I attack this? And if I was building something to stop an attacker, how would I stop an attacker like me from doing an attacky-like thing? That's pretty much what I do.
An attacky-like thing. Perfect.
Yes, that's trademark. You can't use that. That's attacky-like thing.
Okay, that's awesome. And so you do IoT. What does IoT stand for, Tracie?
So we were talking before this, and I think there's a couple different versions of this. The official one is the Internet of Things, but my favorite alternate version is the Internet of Trash. And it's kind of gotten this, if you look at my Twitter bio, you'll see that it says I put the S in IoT, and it's like, see, you get the joke. Do you know how many times I've had this joke explained to me? There is no S in IoT. And I'm like, bless. Yes, I know. That's why it's funny.
Yeah, I'm the S for security in IoT because there isn't any.
Exactly. And so that's kind of the conundrum, right? So you have a lot of these low power, low processing devices, everything from, a 50-cent microcontroller out in the middle of a field monitoring water, to these insanely huge industrial robots manufacturing cars, and historically they just haven't been secured as well as our more traditional compute models, and so it's a really interesting problem space to be in, because you get to do a lot of fun and cool and interesting new stuff.
So would an IoT device also count as a smart toaster? Or a smart fridge?
It can, yeah. So that's kind of that wide range, right? So you have sort of, I would put that in the middle-ish of that range, right? Like, so it's not a $2,000, $2 million robot sitting in an auto factory, but it's much more common. And you have the consumer device space where if you look around, you have security cameras in your home and assistants in your home, whether it's Alexa or Google, and your fridge is connected to the internet. Your coffeeware now has malware, and you can't get your coffee in the morning because it's been infected with ransomware. This is the future we live in.
I remember I did a security tabletop exercise with the Canadian government once, and I was like, if any other country wanted to attack Canada, they would just attack the Tim Hortons everywhere, and then none of us could get coffee, and everything would be screwed. And they're like, yeah. It's scary, Tanya, the way you think.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. I forget the exact statistics, but the Internet of Things is expected to grow by some unbelievable amount in the next 10 years. And we're talking zettabytes of data that previously just didn't exist in the world is now connected to the Internet and the cloud. And so that's why it's really important that we nail the cloud story correctly. Because this is new fields, right? We haven't been down this road before.
I could not agree more. I don't have video cameras in my house except for the ones I'm in control of. Like the ones in my studio or the one pointed at me now, but you would not believe how many people I know, they're like, oh, it's just my little dog camera so I'm like, you're surveilling me in your living room? Like a weird,
alternate approach. So this is kind of how, and I had a deep sort of moral quandary with this for a long time, right? Like, as a security professional, there's a bunch of risks to IoT that we're all aware, right? And that's kind of known. But we also have risks in our smartphones, in our laptops, and there's risks everywhere in IT, and I think. For me, I kind of looked at it as I don't want to tell a user, just don't use it, right? Just don't use it. That's kind of been the canonical guidance for a lot of things.
Not helpful.
You wouldn't have a problem with your USB drives getting infected if you just glued shut all your USB drives like the US government decided to do on their classified networks forever. That was their solution to USB security. Just glue them shut. No problem. Problem solved.
We'll just hobble the business. No problem.
Totally fine. We just got rid of computers. They'd be so secure.
There are so many security teams that are the number one threat to availability.
Yes. I actually got, and it's so funny because I got negative points with my new director, our first meeting. I said, I think you're gonna see that I'm much different than the security practitioners that you've dealt with in the past. I said, I'm an engineer first and a security person second. And what I mean by that is my job is to make things go, right? That is my job here. My job is to make things go, not to slow them down, not to make it hard. Like, my job is to make things function.
Yeah, and what that means is that I talk a lot about this when I talk about DevOps, but we are not here to talk about me. We are here to talk about you. And so, also, I'm wearing my WOSEC Women of Security shirt because Tracie has a conference that she runs sometimes. Do you want to tell them about it? Because we already talked about it on a previous episode. Two of us were going on and on about how great it was, and that's how we had met. Was that?
Yeah. So Tanya was kind enough to keynote. I believe it was our third year of DEFCON, and sort of the premise behind DEFCON, the official talking point is that it's a technical conference for women and non-binary individuals in the cybersec space. The unofficial talking point for it is it's like DEFCON with less groping. And so that was kind of the impetus behind it was a bunch of female friends. Oh, my cat is probably going to make an appearance. I apologize. I thought the door was shut, but hey.
That's a pro, not a con.
That basically a couple of female friends and I were sitting around at DEFCON and we started to share, sort of our DEFCON stories, which ranged from, sort of being dismissed and told we weren't welcome in certain spaces, all the way up to sexual assault on the DEFCON, floor. And so
we were like, wouldn't it be cool if we could just have this super technical conference, but in a safe space where we wouldn't have to worry about, these types of incidents occurring? And that's basically what we made DefenCon to be. We have a capture the flag village, and we have a King village, and a mental health hackers village, and it's very much, it feels like your traditional hacker infosec con, but it's like 80% women and non-binary. So it's kind of, I think it's super cool. Tanya mentioned that I do it sometimes. We used to do it annually, and then I had a trash fire of a year in 2019 with some health issues. So I took a knee in 2020 saying, well, we'll probably pick it up in 2021. And then coronavirus happened.
And it ruined everything that was fun.
And it ruined everything that was fun. This is why we can't have nice things. So I've been kind of talking to some folks about bringing it back virtually, maybe in 2021. Everyone, this is my cat Lottie. She's obnoxious and wants to be involved in everything. So apologies for that. And I just, I'm still trying to figure out if it's worthwhile. I don't want to recreate things that have already exist in the market space. I think Diana Initiative did a great job this year of having a virtual con.
It was good.
I think is doing a virtual con. A lot of the local B-sides are going virtual. I think, are you speaking next week?
I don't think so.
Oh. For some reason, never mind.
Sometimes I'm wrong, just to be clear, but I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I'm speaking next week.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to look that up and put it in the chat so people can find it.
But I think there's a lot of virtual con offerings out there right now, and I want to see if there's a way to meaningfully improve it. That's kind of
because some of them are brutal.
Sorry?
Some of them are really bad. I've been to a lot of really bad virtual cons lately. Like, unforgivably, this is such a waste of my time attending. And I think a lot of people are not super, like, some of them are going well, but a lot of them are not going well. And so I feel like I'm saying yes less often.
Yeah, and that's, sorry, again, my cat is trying to assault my computer. That's one of the reasons that I struggle with, I don't want to put on a con that I don't want to attend. I'm a very selfish baker too. I don't bake things I don't eat.
Sounds like you're smart.
Baking with spinach because ew. So I would never make that because I don't want to consume it. I would never put on a con that I myself would not want to go to. So that's kind of what I've been noodling through on, how can I make this a meaningful experience for everybody? Yeah.
I think that's really important though. And also, I feel like maybe it's okay to pause for a year and then pick it up when everyone's ready.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
But if we ever go back to real life, like in arbitrarily 27 days, if there were to be a fundamental shift in a very large southern neighbor, it might impact how the world is going.
So, no comment here. I live in Canada and I like it. I've invited a lot of people to move to Canada, and I've been informed by the government I don't have that authority.
Yeah.
Like,
that's okay.
They're like, you're not allowed granting visas. Like, you're great, you're adorbs. No. Okay, so more. What is a day in the life like to do your job, to be a principal IoT security engineer? What is your day like?
So I've only been there for 43 days, so I can tell you sort of a brief synopsis of those 43 days. And the first 30 of them, I'll be honest, we're learning the 7,000 names of services that we produce, because there are just so many. But the rest of the time, I kind of think of it like being a mad scientist, right? So I went to my boss and I said, hey, I've read a bunch of stuff on this particular vulnerability path, and if I was going to attack our cloud infrastructure, I'd start here. I said, but it's just a theory right now because I'd need to do a bunch of scans and, correlate a bunch of data and kind of poke at things and see what I can find. And you should know that this could take me 2 months, and at the end, I very well could say to you, just kidding, I was totally wrong. That's a terrible, stupid idea. And he said to me, but you'll have learned. He goes, then you're going to be able to come back and tell me that particular, kill chain isn't something I have to worry about. I don't have to lose sleep on that. And that is information that I can use to build a better product. And so to me, that's kind of fun, just being able to say, I think that the internet works like this. Let's go find out. Scan, 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 poke, 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 and so that's pretty typical. And then a lot of meetings, like so many meetings. I'm not going to lie. So many meetings.
Oh, yeah. No comment on meetings. I had a lot of meetings today. And you would think as the CEO, you'd have the right to have less meetings, but in one of them, I got to build a CI/CD, so that was super fun.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and then we smashed things together in the meeting. Some of my clients are really fun. Okay. So now I'm supposed to tell people that I have a book. Tracy, did you know that I wrote a book?
I did, and I pre-ordered it even. I pre-ordered it, I think, the first day you sent out the pre-order link.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It is called Alice and Bob Learn Application Security, and I'm going to put a link in the chat, and I'm sure that people are probably not going to go to it. But anyway, I wrote a book, and it's about security, and I have now promoted it, and I can check that box.
But people should go to the link because it's going to be amazing. So they should definitely go to the link and pre-order the book.
Okay, I put the link on the screen and into the chat, which I feel is like pretty good. And my marketing person's going to be like, you need to be less awkward, but at least you did it. Okay, so I have more questions for you.
Sure.
What types of personality traits or aptitudes would someone need, do you think, to be good at your job? Like, do they need to have lots of thought leadership? Do they need to be a good listener?
So the reason I laugh at thought leadership is I've heard that so many times in the last 43 days, and it's a little scary because it makes me feel like the adult in the room, and that's like just terrible, terrible feeling for me. Like I feel like I should never be the adult in any room, but here we are. I think so. There's two questions there, right? Like IoT security engineering overall, and then once you get to like the more senior levels. And so I think for IoT, for any security engineering, I think you have to have a deep-seated sense of curiosity, of being able to look at a light bulb and say, I wonder if I could use that to take over a car. And like, that's not I've come to realize in my later life that that's not how normal people think, right? People look and see that's a light bulb.
Boring
it's a light
people.
Bulb. It turns off and on and gives me electricity, right? Like,
boring people, Tracy.
Think.
Oh, I love it.
So I think there's that deeply embedded sense of curiosity. I think my therapist tells me that security overall draws a lot of people who want to protect other people. So there's that tidbit of psychoanalysis for you. Make of that what you will. And then I think at the higher levels, once you get into senior and principal, it is kind of about that thought leadership piece of, the industry is here today. Where is it going to be in 5 years, 10 years? How can I meaningfully improve customers' lives, not just today, but tomorrow and, in the future?
Okay, so I'm putting that on the screen because that's perfect. Am I echoing for you? All of a sudden I am echoing on my side.
I don't hear it, but you're also on this weird, half a second delay for me, so our connection may not be the best.
Okay, good. I'm going to assume it's okay until someone tells me it's not. So
my husband today sends me is your internet broken? And I was like, it's really slow. I think Comcast has an outage. And he's like, that's okay. I'll reboot my computer. And I was like, okay, reboot your computer.
You're like, I love you, honey.
And then the best part was that he's like, it seems to have fixed it. And I was like, okay.
Maybe there was a bunch of things wrong. And that
cascading set of failures.
Oh my gosh. So for all the people watching, if you are enjoying our conversation, or later if you're watching this video, please click the thumbs up. If you are not subscribed yet, you should definitely subscribe, see our thumbs. And also you should subscribe to our podcast or YouTube channel, or both. Actually, yeah, you should probably do both. That sounds like an appropriate...
Pleasure, double the fun.
Right? Okay, so what types of technical skills does someone need to do your job? And then at the end I have, if any.
So I think we've talked about this before, you and I. That term technical skills really just kind of puts ashes in my mouth because that implies that somebody out there somewhere gets to decide what is and is not a technical skill.
And then use that word as a weapon.
Yes. And so I will say that skills overall that are useful to have is basic coding. So like this is my claim to fame. I am a terrible software developer, like legitimately one of the worst. My claim to fame is I have committed one piece of production code at Microsoft, and the code comment was, I don't know how this works, but it was the least efficient way to get there. So I should not be doing production code. That's like I've made that piece. But you know, I can do a little bit of like Python scripting and Bash scripting, and you know, I can kludge things together. There's a reason I don't write production software. I just break other people's and pretend like I can be superior in that way by saying, "Hey, look, this is broken," and I would have totally done the same thing because I too am a person. And so I think that is an interesting thing, is that like coming from that set of empathy. I think a lot of security practitioners overall, many in the past, were, I can't believe you wrote this code so bad. Gosh, you must be dumb. And it's like, no, they're a person who made the best choices they could at the time they made them with the information and in time available to them. And so I think that's, being a bad coder myself has given me a lot of like empathy for people who make code mistakes.
Do you feel like being a jerk to software developers helps them write better code?
No, I actually, this is...
It's weird because it's a technique people seem to use a lot, though.
Yeah, I have this theory that security practitioners, and keep in mind, I'm one of the old people, right? Like, I started in the Department of Defense, and we are like OG security people, right? Like, that was the first sort of disciplined cybersecurity job there was that wasn't just, you know, hacking on things in a basement somewhere. And that very much was the thought, right? We had this almighty power invested in us from generals and laws, and, you know, and that's very much the culture I grew up in. And I sort of had this epiphany in my later life. I think a lot of the old school security practitioners are like the Oracle of Delphi. Where they sort of dispense this wisdom into the universe, and they won't tell you how to do it, and they won't tell you why it's important to do it, and they won't answer questions about why you should do it a certain way versus another way. And if you screw it up, then that's on you, right? They gave you the wisdom from the high mountain, and if you didn't understand it, that's your problem. And I think our industry has needed to shift for a while and is slowly doing it. With, you know, I think DevOps or DevSecOps is a large part of that, like, sort of cultural shift of we should all understand, at least in commercial space, that we are building something, and our job is to build software that makes customers' lives better, and building no software at all does not make customers' lives better.
I agree so much. It's like my words are coming out of Tracy's mouth.
We've talked about this. We're kind of like the same person in a lot of ways. Like,
it's true.
The Venn diagram's pretty close to a circle.
It's true. And we both have purple in our hair, or is yours?
Anymore, because I haven't been to my hairdresser in like since March
because scary.
Because I have a heart condition now, and now I have to stay inside like some kind of crazy recluse. It's all good.
I hear what you're saying. I have 3 people in my personal life that are immune compromised, so I have to act as though I am as well.
Yeah.
Because it's not cool to kill the people you love by
we should just make that a slogan
right?
for, like, you know, this podcast. It's not cool to kill the people in your life.
Like, it's not, just to be clear, it's not cool to kill anyone, but it's especially extra not gonna make you any friends to bring home that.
And honestly, I thought about doing a permanent die right before this, and I thought that's going to end in tragedy, and I'm just going to wait and like ride this out before, you know, things go horribly wrong right before a recorded podcast. So
Yeah, It's like, Tracy, your hair is so many colors. So what types of training or work experience would someone want to do if they wanted to get into IoT security? And especially if eventually they want to be able to call themselves a principal security engineer, because that is a feat. That is a feat. I have never been called principal.
I've been called to the principals.
I knew that.
Oh, sorry. That's a
Like,
different.
wait. Let's put that away for later.
Sorry. No. So they're very serious questions that deserve a serious answer. And I think I will be the first one to tell you that I probably came into this job from a very non-standard background. I think the more traditional way is to have been a software developer, a software security engineer for your entire career, and then sort of laterally move into IoT. I have been an engineer early in my career, and then I went through this, like, we were talking about this, finding my place. I went through this program manager phase of my life where I came out of the military and Microsoft said, well, you're a program manager. And I was like, I don't really know what that means, but
I didn't know what PM meant when I worked there. I thought everyone was a project manager. Or a product manager, a program manager, and they're like, we hired a lot of PMs. I'm like, what are they gonna do?
So that's the funny thing, is that I have this theory that, especially the technical program managers, which I was for a long time, I used to say we're engineers who can talk to people. And in really high functioning orgs, I think that is true. In really poorly functioning orgs, I think what you have is a bunch of people with sort of medium to low tech skills that are getting buried under doing project planning. And that is not really functional in a lot of places, I don't think. I think project management is an incredibly important and essential discipline to get software shipped. Like, that is by no means a dig on project management. But I think it can be really challenging to match people either to doing project plans and project implementation or technical implementation and technical judgment. Like, I think that can be a tricky mix to get right.
I totally agree. So, like, could someone take training on IoT security, or is there like a way that they could try to learn about it that you might suggest?
Absolutely. So I kind of, me, I get off on tangents, but what I was going to say.
That's why I like you.
Was going to say is, so I came from a very AppSec-y kind of background, right? Like, my time at Microsoft was spent doing MSRC work, and my time in office was spent doing AppSec feature work. And so IoT is not my native habitat. So when I took this over, I really did have to start sort of at the bottom, right? Like, as if I were day one. And so I bought a couple Arduino knockoff boards and a book called The Arduino Workshop, and I started building little blinky light things so that I could kind of understand how that worked. Then I got a Raspberry Pi, and I started, experimenting with some Raspberry Pi builds. And then I'm starting to branch into the like the secure chipset implementations for Raspberry Pi, and there's a bunch of like cool like fringe projects that increase security. I'm so lucky that I get to work with people who have been doing IoT for forever. And so it's kind of a nice like marriage, right? Like, they know more about IoT than I probably will ever know in my entire life. And I know more about security than they might, know right now, especially. And so it's kind of that nice thing, because I get to think of it as if it were a computer, and then they get to explain to me why, don't worry about that, that's not how IoT works. And then eventually I'll be able to say, but this is how IoT works, and this is how security works, and I'll marry that up.
And then you do this.
Yes.
And then you smash the things. Just for those that are listening and can't see the video of both of us smashing our fists together rapidly.
Yes.
I am going to take this moment to thank our sponsor, Ubic Security, who creates an API security tool to help you ensure that you are creating secure APIs. And I think we can all agree, especially when it comes to IoT, we want those APIs that they are calling to actually be safe and secure and not be at the hands of malicious actors. Definitely. Okay, so let's say I'm totally obsessed after listening to this, and I think I want to do a job similar to Tracie's someday. Could someone make a learning path that they could get there? Do you know what I mean? Like, should they learn some AppSec and learn a little IoT, or what kind of path could we potentially draw out for listeners?
So I'll tell you how I started, and then I will tell you what I would do differently, if I were 20 years old today. So I started out in server maintenance, right? I did old school, like, Active Directory management. And then I got pulled into this security thing in the Air Force, and it was like, what in the world? I don't even know what this is. And so I got my A plus, and then I got my network plus, and then I got my security plus, and then I got my CISSP. And that allowed me to get a bunch of jobs in the government where, I got to do kind of security things, and that was cool. And then I decided I was done with certifications, and so I went to work for commercial. And while I was there, my first interview actually with Microsoft was a disaster. I failed it. I failed it so hard. Like, I have never cried after an interview. I cried after that one. It was embarrassing. But you know what I did? I went to the guy that interviewed me and I said, let's be honest, that was shitty. But give me 2 weeks and tell me what I need to learn, and I'll learn it. And I basically memorized the Windows internal book. So
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
I know, right? That thing is huge. I don't remember any of it, by the way. Like, it's totally RAM-based memory. It's gone forever. But I was able to pass the interview and, to spend a lot of time learning from people who are a lot smarter than me. And then I got involved in the con scene, and I spent time at DEFCON. We were actually just laughing. A guy who just started at Amazon a couple weeks ago, we were comparing, like, phone directories. And he goes, oh, you know this person? I said, oh, yeah, I do know this person. And he goes, oh, well, how do you know him? I said, he taught me to hack my first box at DEFCON. He goes, oh, that's amazing. And so, just going to cons and meeting with people and hanging out with the villages and, and now we have this IoT village. That's crazy. Like, that didn't exist when I was coming up. That wasn't a thing. Just going out and making those connections and being curious, joining your online communities. I'm in one right now for veterans that is a veteran security community, and they've got an entire channel dedicated to SCADA and ICS systems, and I get to hang out there and
because they're scary
and learn from those folks. And yeah, I think that's how I would learn if I were starting over again.
I think that's brilliant. And I'm also sharing your website, Internet of Tracie. And that's Tracie with IE, not a Y, as I found out when I typed it in wrong just now. So it's Internet of Tracie. I
don't even want to know
IE.com.
What landed on in the internet.
Well, actually, first I put Dat Security Chick because that is your Twitter handle. And then that was incorrect. So there's no website, datsecuritychick.com. So just so you know, all people that want to run out and jump on that and URL squat.
Oh my gosh. Also, I should apologize because my actual website is a bit of a trash fire and I haven't had time to actually put a lot of meaningful content, but it does have at least 2 of my talks up there, so.
Well, mine doesn't have that at all. I have sheaxpurple.ca, and it's just like some pictures of me, and then it's like, please buy my book. It's like
now I have to write a book in order to sell a book, and that's a lot of work.
Oh, it is so much work. If I had known how much work it is, I don't know if I would have done it. Because you know how they say women that have had a baby, they like forget, it like flushes out of their mind how painful it is. And then they go and they have another baby. They're like, what was I thinking? This is awful. Giving birth is no fun.
Yes, that was me last year. I was like, if I would have known how hard it was, I don't know if I'd do it. Now this year I'm like, he really needs a brother or sister. My husband's like, are you stupid? Like, what happened to you?
I've heard scientists say that there's actually like a chemical thing that like flushes out that memory for women so that they don't get, birth PTSD.
Yeah, probably.
And so that we can have more offspring. Because otherwise, imagine if every woman, she gave birth once and she's like, I don't think so. And then what if she told her friends and they're like,
Yeah, But yeah, so that's actually been a non-zero investment of my time over the last year, has been getting into this whole motherhood thing. They take a lot of work, man. They take a lot of work.
I have heard that rumor and believe it to be very true.
Yes, so.
Okay, so now I have the super sensitive question. Does being a principal IoT security engineer pay well?
I think it does.
So I guess you'd have to ask yourself what does being paid well mean to you?
Yeah. We talk about cheese a lot on this podcast. So I like
Yeah.
cheese. And I figured out I'd really made it. And I was definitely middle class when I went to the grocery store and I was like humming and hawing between two different types of super delicious cheese. And then I realized, I'm like, Tanya, you're rich enough. You could just get both cheese. And then now sometimes I get two cheese just like for nothing at the grocery store. And I'm like, I'm doing great. But
Yeah. So Tanya and I have had this discussion. So I came up in not financially well off, and there were times when we were not sure we were going to be able to pay our mortgage and get groceries that month. So I still have a little bit of that economic PTSD where I go and I was the other day, it was something stupid. It was like a $35 purchase, right? $35. And I agonized literally agonized for weeks over this purchase. And it's like, wait, it's okay. It's okay now. You can relax a little. But that being said, I think it also helps me be very aware of the privilege I do have. I've been able to, donate and support political causes that I care about very much. We did a fundraising match around DefenCon's Twitter handle for Black Lives Matter. I've supported a bunch of, children's charities and stuff through, and so I think that has been the coolest thing for me personally, is being able to do those kind of civic activities that I couldn't have done growing up where I grew up.
that's awesome. Also, Kim is watching and she says, cheese money. Yes.
Yeah.
So she is agreeing with
And I
us.
have to send you a picture of this cheese that we buy that's stupidly expensive for cheese, but it's so good.
I love cheese. And I shouldn't talk about it so often on the podcast. Like, how many minutes per episode are dedicated to cheese? I'm like, under 5. Under 5.
Honestly, when you first said it, I thought you were going for like a very, very like meta who moved my cheese kind of like, thing. And I was like, no, she means actual cheese.
Yeah. Well, it's like how you know that you've made it, if that makes sense. Like, for instance, I have a fridge and it makes its own ice. And that was my next level. I'm like, I am now upper middle class. My fridge makes its own. I love ice. Like, I'll fill a cup completely to the top and then pour my beverage around it. And people are like, would you like some, cola with that? I'm like, no. And so have...
Mine is air conditioning. Being able to have the central air conditioning turn to whatever temperature I want was a big, because we grew up in Arizona, and it's hot there, very hot. And my mom would not turn the air conditioning on until our house was practically on fire. And so, now knowing, now being able to be my house is at 75 degrees, rain, sun, snow, I don't care. That is the temperature of my home. It's like a big moment for me.
I love it and feel you so much. Okay, so I have more things that I want to know. So, are there lots of opportunities for people that want to work in security related to IoT?
Yes. IoT in general and security specifically. So I looked up the stats before we got on and have promptly forgotten them. But the IoT market is expected to grow. I want to say it's roughly 30% in the next 5 years. And it's billions of devices that we're adding and billions of petabytes and zettabytes of data. And all of that data has to be secured. All of those devices need a secure way to connect to the other devices and to the internet. This is not going away anytime soon. We're becoming more connected, not less connected. I was reading a thing the other day on the connected cow. I'm not making this up, Tanya. This is an actual thing that actually exists in our world. They have put internet-connected sensors in cows' stomachs. I'm not making this up.
Is that cruel? Does it hurt them?
I haven't asked the specific cows, but I would like to believe no.
Okay.
And it monitors the acid level in their stomach so they can tell if they're digesting food properly.
Wow.
They
To
have
take
ones
care
that
of
go into their
them.
tail that can tell if they're going to give birth.
Whoa.
It's mad. We are connecting everything. We're connecting cows to the internet. This field is going nowhere anytime soon.
Okay. So this is very good. This is very good news for listeners who are suddenly thinking that they want to hack their fridge. Um, so, what do you like best about your job and your work? Like, what is your favorite thing?
I think my favorite thing is I feel a little bit like a kid. I get to just go play with things. And my boss is super cool, and I'll say, "Hey, um, I saw this thing, and I think I can make it do this thing to this other thing. Can I go buy a couple and see if that's true?" And for the most part, he's been really okay. He has said
Nice.
no a couple times when the thing I wanted was, say, a very expensive exercise bike. Apparently, it's not okay to hack those because they're like 12 grand. So I support his rationale on that, but for the most part, it's been really cool to just be able to tinker around with stuff and see how things work and just spend my day like a 5-year-old going, why? But why? But why?
Awesome. That sounds so fun. So, the following question, what is the least favorite thing about it?
I think, and again, I'm still kind of new, so I don't know if I've found an official least favorite. I think there's two for me so far. I think we mentioned me being the adult in the room has been a tremendous, and I mean, if you really think about it, I've been the adult in many rooms in my career, but I think I felt the most adulty at this particular room. Because when you get to the principal level, for some reason, people imbue you with these like mystic, powers of discernment and judgment. And it's like, well, you're a principal engineer, you should know. And I spend a lot of my time going, I'm a principal engineer and I should know.
Oh,
And frantically trying to learn the thing that I should probably already know. So I think that's been good and bad, right? Like it forces me to be always curious and it forces me to learn a lot. But it's also terrifying, which is usually the sign of a good job if it's, 2/3 interesting and 1/3 terrifying. I think that's about the right mix. And then I think the other thing I don't love is that so here's a weird fact about me that you probably don't know. I'm incredibly dyslexic.
oh, I'm
And
dyslexic too.
see, I told you, same person. And so coding is really hard for me, not because I don't understand how. I spent a good 6 minutes this morning because the tweet that I tagged you in for some unknown reason that I still don't know, because one of my lines of code had a backslash instead of a forward slash, and I was like, I have no idea why this doesn't work. This should work. And that was 5 minutes of my life I'll never get back. I used to tell people that my version of hell is looking for a misplaced semicolon for all eternity. And
Oh.
that's the type of coder I am. And it's a language thing, right? And it's an ability thing. So I think those two things are probably challenging for me.
I totally empathize with you. However, for whatever reason, coding clicked in my brain and then it was just easy. I'm really lucky. It was unlike learning to play guitar. That took forever. I was like, why don't I sound like Pearl Jam yet? And I'd like to note I still don't sound like Pearl Jam.
I also have this really terrible personality trait where if I can't be like the best at something, then I just don't want to do it. Like I was number 2 in our swimming competition league for like 10 years as a kid, and I finally quit because I realized I was never going to be number 1. I was like, this is stupid. I don't want to do it anymore.
I mean, it would be way worse if you had drowned the other kid. So I feel like
Yeah.
there could have been much worse
She
endings.
was a childhood best friend. It was fine,
Prob-
but yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so what makes you feel the most pride in the work that you do?
I think for me, it's being able to go to customers who maybe don't have a mature engineering process on security right now. And, they're out there doing the thing that they do, right? And maybe they're a coffee maker company or they make exercise bikes or they have a fleet of, vehicle management software. Security is not their job, right? That's not what they want to do with their lives. And I get to be like, come use our product and look, all of this is taken care of for you. Ta-da! And that's really cool because I think it helps enable people to do really cool things that I can't do. Like I'm not that imaginative. I don't know how to make a new fleet management system for trucks. I don't know that I care that much, but somebody out there does, and they're the best at it, and that's exciting. Like that's exciting for the world. So
I love it. I love it. I think that's really positive too. Okay, so now I have two questions, but I'm kind of going to mash them together because they're really similar. So what advice would you want to give to someone who's hoping to get into a role like yours, and maybe like actionable steps that they could take? So this is a hard question, so I'm going to like stall for a little bit, but then I'm going to stop talking and then you have to answer. That was the stalling.
That's fine. So I think it's a broad question, right? And it's a different answer for someone who is, right now in college, or maybe, returning to the workforce from a non-technical field, versus maybe someone who's, a developer right now who is looking to transition into security. So I'll try and answer kind of as much of the use case as I can without boring everyone. Sorry, I have cat hair stuck to my mascara. It's the whole thing.
Well, she does want to be in the show, and I can list her as a co-star for you if you want.
You should. She's, everyone at work has seen her butt, so it's she's basically a coworker of mine. Anyhow, so for somebody who's new to technical endeavors altogether, I would say learn your basics, right? Because all computers, whether it's a microcontroller in a sensor or a bajillion-dollar server in a data center, share a lot of common threads, right? You can apply a lot of the same core knowledge. So for me, I think Security Plus, and I don't want to wade into the certification discussion, but Security Plus has a really good body of knowledge to give you sort of that foundational layer of understanding. Whether you take or use the cert or not is a completely different discussion. But doing things like that, doing MIT, I think, has an intro to security course that's free. Get a 30-day subscription to LinkedIn Learning. Like, they've got some decent material on there for, introduction to coding, introduction to security. The fundamentals don't change. So I think that would be a start if you're trying to transition into a technical field from a non-technical one. If you're sitting out there and you're a software developer and you're already pretty technical, I think the same can apply of learning the security basics, but I think you might want to figure out a technology area that you want to specialize in, and maybe it's, routing traffic, and you go and get a Cisco security cert, or you go and take a degree path in, security for securing routers. I think you don't have to do it on the education route. My biggest thing that I tell people is just show up to your local events. This is pre-COVID, but when the world
Not
turns
now.
again,
Not now. Yeah.
not now. Don't show up to your local events. Show up to your local events. Go. I have a friend of mine who, she was a bartender, and she said, I'm kind of thinking of tech, but I don't think I'm smart enough to do it. Which, first of all, is crap. Like, if I'm smart enough to do it, everyone's smart enough to do it. But I said, just come to DefenCon, just hang out, and even if you don't understand anything, figure out what's interesting to you. You're gonna go to a talk that says, wow, I never knew that the smart grid needed to be secured, and I don't understand any of the protocols you just said, or any of the I don't understand any of the hacks you just did, but that's an interesting problem space for me to read up on.
Cool.
And that's kind of what I would tell people to do. And you can do that online too. YouTube is your friend, right? Like, I learned a new tool from YouTube this week. Go to YouTube and type, how do I do this thing? And you'll come back with a bunch of, videos that you can learn from, and go play. Go get a test subscription to AWS or Azure, and get yourself a box and hack all the things.
Yeah.
Legally and with permission, and definitely not without permission, because that's bad.
Yep. Tanya and Tracy feel we should obey the law, and so should you.
Yes.
No law breaking.
No.
So those are all my questions about your career, and now I have two very difficult questions for you.
Okay.
They're not. Do you do things outside of information security, and would you like to share one of them with the audience?
Sure. So I don't know if DefenCon can really count as outside information security, because it's actually really in security. But the most least InfoSec thing I do Oh, that's a weird sentence. Is actually photography. So I have I do landscape photography, and obviously I take lots of pictures of my son. Actually, something that most people don't know, my office is actually my photo studio. So if you're ever wondering why there is lighting equipment, no, I do not make films of any sort of nature, as has been suggested by certain people. It is strictly lighting for photographic shoots of my small child. So yes, that's probably the least infosec thing I do, and then I also snowboard really badly. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Or I used to anyway. I don't know. I haven't been back since my heart went bum on me, so we'll see. Yeah.
I've only snowboarded once, and it kind of looked like this, like just flapping over, like tumbling and tumbling and tumbling, and lots of swearing in both official Canadian languages, and then me saying, "Where's the bar?" So if you've done it more than once, I feel like you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, I actually was a mountain host for a whole season, which is basically where you go and give people directions and make sure that they're not, stuck in a tree well somewhere, and things like that.
So you would have saved me. That's good.
No, but I would have made the radio call to the search and rescue people that would have saved you. So and I would have held your hand until they got there.
And you would have said, "This way to the bar."
Yes. That I would have done.
Okay, so the last and final question that I have for you is, if people want to know more about Tracie, where should they go?
Twitter's probably my most vociferous channel of information. So at DATSecurityChick is probably best to find me. It links to all of my other stuff. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's my real name, so Tracie Martin is up, on LinkedIn. Those are probably the two best ways to contact me. I do reply to messages, or at least I try to, most of the time.
Nice. I'm not that great at it either. I am putting your Twitter handle under your face right now so people can see it. Thank you so much for being on the show. Ooh, Vogue, nice.
Yeah. Add a little pizzazz to my Twitter handle.
Thank you so much for being on the show. It was such a pleasure. And also, if someone wants to send Tracie a really expensive bike, contact her, like an electronic IoT interconnected bike. Contact her on Twitter at DATSecurityChick, or maybe other really expensive devices.
Sure.
You're like,
sure.
Lots of.
I'll hack on it. I can't guarantee I'll find anything, but
I don't know.
I'll do my best, and if not, I'll use it.
Seems like a good deal to me. I mean, free security testing / maybe destruction. Okay, I'm going to behave myself. I am supposed to be wrapping up. I am doing okay. I've not gone over an hour. I'm doing great. Okay, thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to do the thing where you disappear and then say the outro credits. Thank you, Tracie Martin.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you for coming to the We Hack Purple podcast. We really, really appreciate you listening and watching and subscribing and clicking the like button. Thank you so much to our sponsor, Ubix Security, who makes an awesome API security tool. Please write a review for us. If you write a review for us, you might be like Mary Liz C., who wrote an awesome review for us that I'm going to read for you right now. It has everything from funny stories to great career advice. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Mary. So if you write us a review and then you message us a picture of the review on our Twitter account at WeHackPurple, we will send you stickers. Yes, that's right. Bribery from We Hack Purple Academy. We have new courses out. We have a brand new one coming out the day after Halloween about application security, you might have guessed. And we have a whole bunch of awesome guests coming up after Tracie, including, but not limited to, I'm trying not to just go on and on and on, but up next week we have Katie Paxton Fear, and she's going to talk all about what it's like to be a bug hunter and a PhD student, which are very different, it turns out. We're going to have Dominique West on the week after that to talk about being a senior cloud engineer and consultant. Stephanie Black on to talk about being a cybersecurity account manager, because someone needs to manage all those customers. We're going to have Tyrone Wilson on to talk about what it's like to be the CEO of a cybersecurity company. And after that, we're going to have Kim Crawley on. And you might have read her articles all over the place and not realized it was her. She is an amazing cybersecurity journalist who has been writing for many, many publications for a long time. And so we're going to find out about all those types of careers and what those people are up to. And so thank you so much for listening and joining us today. I am Tanya Janka, your host of the We Hack Purple podcast.